What's up, people? My name is Jonathan. Welcome to Quick Tips Episode 2 on Mix It Up. Today, I'm going to give you my top tips on drum production. So, drum production to me is a really important part of songwriting. Nowadays, you can get away with some really good plugins for guitars, and there's so many even free versions of guitar amp sims out there. Bass also, there's a lot of really good MIDI, even bass plugins you can get. And vocals, of course, you can't fake that. You gotta give a good performance. But drums separate to me kind of the men from the boys. You can tell if a drum production is really nailing it or not. So I'll give you my top tips for drum production. So having said what I just said, the first one is obvious. You can't really get away without having really good drum sources to really get that edge you want. There are a lot of course, drum MIDI based stuff out there. Easy Drummer is a very popular software used out there, but to me, I used to use Easy Drummer and I've switched now to Superior Drummer 3. And I believe there are other options like Get Good Drums and others on the market that are supposed to be also quite good. But to me, you really cannot get to a certain level of production unless you really use a top end drum software, unless you're using real drums. If you're using real drums, of course, you have a luxury. You just record this at the source. That's a whole other topic, how you get a good performance out of the drummer and how you record that performance and make it sound good. But let's say you're in a box and you have to use MIDI drums. You can't get away with using something like Easy Drummer and get to that level to make it sound really pro version. You got to use something like Superior Drummer or something similar. So that's the first one. Second one is drum bus compression. Of course, there's a lot of tips about how to compress individual drum parts, be it rooms, be it the snare, kick, or whatever. But to me, the drum bus compression, when you merge all of the drum individual tracks together, to me, that's a really important part of getting the good drum sound. And my go-to drum compressor, which I use 100% of the time now, is API 2500 from Waves. I have not found any compressor that does what it does. It has a lot of nice little features in there. For example, you can separate the left and right channel. You can have more independent compression working left and right, which I find really helps push your drums forward. It has a lot of adjustable knees. It has really some nice little tweaks in the compression to get a really aggressive, punchy sound. And to me, that's really my go-to. I will never use any other compressor until I find one that's as good. So API 2500 from Waves, use it. If you're using edgy, punchy drums, try it out and you'll thank me later. Next one is clipping. Clipping is, to me, like magic. So clipping is different from limiting and it's different from compression. Clipping, what it does is, as you can imagine, it clips. It takes a waveform which is very peaky, and it basically, like a pair of scissors, cuts at a certain point off. And you can clip hard and soft, which means you're either clipping really, like a straight edge, or you clip kind of with a little bit of softer parts. It's a bit more gentle how it clips. Why clipping is secret source to me is because when you clip, you're basically reducing the overall height of the peaks. You're cutting that down, which means that if you increase the volume then of the whole drum performance, you're basically able to reach the same, shall we say, peak to peak level, but you're making the overall drums louder. And the problem is snares and sometimes kicks and sometimes toms, they're very peaky and they stick through needles into your waveform. When you clip them, not only do you create some harmonics which are pleasing, you create kind of an overall louder sound of drums. And when you have dense guitars, thick layered vocals, sometimes really edgy, distorted bass, the drums really need some edge to cut through. So clipping, I use clipping on my snare, on my toms, and even in addition to the two of those, on my drum bus. just a little bit. And even then, I put clippers on my mastering chain. So I use multi-stage clipping. And what it does, it helps build, really make a dense drum performance. It makes, by clipping, it creates kind of a more edgy sound to the snare, which is pleasing, and it also makes it cut through better. Clipping is like magic. What I probably will do as a follow-on from this quick tips, I'm going to probably do an episode on arranging things, on taking a song I've done and walk through the entire drum bus, how I've done it. But that's for later. For now, I'm just going to keep it simple. Next one is the nollie trick on instrument bus. So I'm going to leave in the description below an in-depth video of that, about how nollie does that. I'll also cover that in my deep dive course, where I'll take a drum performance I've done and how I've mixed it. But basically what he does in a nutshell, he uses the Slate FG Gray compressor, which is kind of like an SSL bus compressor plugin. He puts that on the instrument bus. So what he does is he groups drums, guitars, bass, and keyboards, anything you have that's not vocals, he groups those to what's called the instrument bus. The vocals are mixed separately and then merged together to the mix bus. So on the instrument bus, he puts this FG Gray compressor. He has some special settings which he recommended, which I have just used, and it just seemed to work for me. What this does, in addition to the clipping I just mentioned, it acts super fast on the very high transients of the snare. So it immediately clamps down on the snare. You might think initially that that's going to make the snare sound dull. It doesn't. It just controls that super high peak of the snare, and it just allows you to push the entire instrument bus higher, and it keeps the snare under control. As Nolly pointed out when he showed this technique, when you turn that on and off, the results are amazing, and you can really hear how much it's adding to building a dense mix. So that Nolly instrument bus, which is kind of a drum technique, but it's on the instrument bus, to me is a secret sauce, which I also use. I use that 100% of the time. I really thank Nolly for that trick. And the last one is create a mix template for your drums. And I'll go into this in the deep dive, but I have my mix template set up with plugins, which I use all the time. And to be honest, I'm making very small tweaks. But with that drum template, it's not just fixed for one song. I've got it set up so I can create different types of drum sounds from that template. So for example, if I have a more laid back type of sound that's more rocky, I might want a bit more intimate kind of sound, like kind of a ZZ Top kind of drum sound, which is a very dry, more drier sound and less reverb. I can I can adjust some settings in my mix template and create that sound. Then if I'm going for something like a slower, say Pearl Jam, the first album, 10 type of sound, which is very reverby, very roomy. The room sounds are a lot of the drum sounds, and the close mics are not as prominent in the mix. For that type of performance, I want to be able to push up the ambience. I want to maybe push up the reverb, a bit more reverb on the snare. I can make those adjustments, and I can go from ZZ Top to Pearl Jam 10 with some adjustments in my mix template. So I can control my mix by, I've already got it set up that I can create those different sounds without having to change anything in the mix template itself. Now I've done this through trial and error, and I've learned this it didn't come to me overnight, but I've got that mix template to me that I can get that done. And to me, it's important when you've got a mix, you got to say, what type of drum performance do I want? Do I want a Pearl Jam 10? Do I want something like a ZZ Top, which is intimate, roomy? You know, it sounds like you're almost in a small studio with the guys. Do you want something in the middle? What do you want? Do you want the cymbals to be present or not? So that's another thing. I can make the cymbals more or less present, which is another thing can destroy your mix when the cymbals are too washy. I struggled with that a lot in my previous time. So getting that balance and having a mixed template where you can adjust a few things and get that performance, to me, is very vital. And I've come up with that. I'll, again, in my detailed drum performance where I'll do a deep dive into this. I'll walk you through all of this and how I've done it. I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not saying my mix template is the best on earth. There's probably better ones out there, but I'm telling you what I've found, and that mix template does it for me. I can go from ZZ Top to Pro Jam 10 with a few sliders, and to me that saves me a ton of time, and I can get what I want. So I'll share that with you in the deep dive, which will come up. But that's to me key. And as always, when I give you my tips, take it and maybe apply it as you want. In my previous time trying to learn about drum production, I did what you're doing now, listen to how others are doing it. And I used to just copy and paste. You got to copy, yeah, but apply it to how you want to do it and maybe how you mix, because the way you do things, it might be different from me. So just take it, learn from it, and apply it as you want, or not apply it. It's up to you. So those are my 5 top drum tips for you, drum production wise. I hope this is useful for you. I'd love if you could give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate if you do. More shit's coming on this channel. And I'll see you again on the next top tips. And also I'll see you in the drum production deep dive. Sorry about the surroundings here. I'm not in my usual studio. I'm currently in quarantine in Taiwan. So this video might not be the best quality. But anyway, I'll keep it going for you guys. Thanks a lot. Stay safe out there and see you next time.